Marky Worthington Podcast all day.
All day.
Dream by night.
Don't buy me a drink. Just give me $10.
Oh, dude, you look sweet. Yeah, you got a big beard, dude.
Go down to the strip club with your floppy disk and turn it into a hard drive.
Yeah, right. Thrown out by Big Tony.
We're here to name names and make people feel more ashamed for shit that they're not proud of.
Me and my best friend, Marky Worthington.
Whatever it is.
Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the Marky Worthington Comedy Podcast. This is episode 140 here with return guest of the show, friend of the show, third time on the show, 3 times lucky with Tim Jacobus.
What's up?
Hey, so, all right, now we've got the formalities out of the way. Look at that.
It took us a long time. Jeez.
The best part about that was like, wait, hang on, this is a comedy podcast. What are you doing?
Exactly, you got the wrong guy.
Now, over the years, I've had different guests on the show, not just for comedy, but I also use this platform to talk to people that like that do things that I have interests in, or things that influence me. Anything, just the arts in general. So that's why I managed to shoehorn my passion for Goosebumps into this episode. I don't know how I've managed to do. I can get everything to circle back. Everything's a callback in my life. But yeah. So for those of you that might not know, because we're talking to my audience here, and we need a lot of hand holding to understand things. We've got with Tim Jacobus here. He's been on the episode before, on the show before. In the end of the first episode. Which was episode 51. We talked a lot of Goosebumps. So if anyone's listening to this show because you want to listen to Goosebumps heavy material, the first episode we did is all of the questions that people ask. We even went through a blog online that was like 10 things that you didn't know about Tim Jacobus and defunct 3 of them. So and then at the end of the episode, we get into the point where Tim said, it's a shame we sort of got through all the Goosebumps stuff and didn't have time for anything else because I hitchhiked around America. So episode 2 came out, and that was when we went through the stories of hitchhiking around America. Right at the end of that episode, I'm not used to people doing the reverse card on me and I'm normally the one that have to coax them into saying you should do another episode. But right at the end there, Tim said, we got to talk, and Tim said that he worked at a comedy club, and also had a story about when he got arrested. So I was like, well, that sounds like a part 3 to me. And we all know that the Goosebumps series likes the rule of 3, so I figured let's have him back and do a third part, and we can cover off the things we never did.
Perfect.
So let's. Now, this is a comedy podcast, so let's start.
Maybe start with the comedy.
Yeah. Let's start with the comedy. We took us 3 episodes, but we found a mutual ground. Our Venn diagrams line up right in that comedy section there. So tell us, what was it like working at a comedy club, and what did you do there?
So this is 1981. Comedy was happening pretty regularly in Manhattan. I'm in New Jersey. I'm about 40 miles away from New York City. So Catch a Rising Star, I think, is hopping the so the comedy names that you've heard in the past were all making their way there, and it got. And comedy had an initial surge and got real popular, and it started to branch out. So I lived in a place called Lake Apacon, which is, it used to be a vacation place back in the 40s, the 20s, 30s, and 40s, that people used to come out from the city, and then eventually it just grew into a full-time community. Also had some inexpensive lake houses that you could move into, and I was newly married and broke, as most artists are at the beginning. So we were able to find a small one bedroom 3-room, basically a cabin in the woods, on the lake, not really in the woods. And we paid, when we first moved in there, we paid $250 a month for rent. Now that's crazy how inexpensive that is.
That's still like $4,000 Australian right now.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's 4 digits,
Yeah.
no matter where you are, even the worst place.
It sounds like a start of a Goosebumps book already.
That's right. So my ex-wife was a bartender. So, she was able to find a gig right there at the lake. And after she got the job, they said, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're going to start doing comedy on the weekends. And the name of the place was the Upper Deck. But they held the comedy downstairs in the basement. So right there, we're already off to a rough start. But it was one of those places where they got a hold of a guy who was a pretty decent promoter who represented a bunch of the comics. So once he knew this place was available, he kind of put it on the as part of the cycle. And so the first maybe 6 months, maybe a year, I didn't work there, just she did. And I would go over, we only had one car, so I would drop her off there at the beginning of her shift. And they would run, it was 1 show on Friday, 2 shows on Saturday. And it was just get the people in, there was generally 4 comics, 3 or 4. No, I take that back. It was 3. One guy was the MC, and then there was the mid guy, and then there was the headliner. And so I would drop her off, and generally I was hanging out at home. I was still doing my artwork, and then I would just go back and pick her up. And then I started to become more of a fan of what was going on there, and started to come to hang out and see the show. So after I was hanging enough times, the guy who ran the place was like, well, you're here all the time anyway. We could use a little help here. I need a guy who works so there was a staircase, and people would come in, you'd put them on the list, and then we had a little floor plan. And then I used to take the names and then put them on the seating chart, and then, get them into the place. And then I would also tell the guy when the room was full. And so basically I was a glorified maitre d'. And but then after I got everybody seated, I got to hang out at the show. And then my job at the end of the show was to stand at the top of the stairs, and everybody had to show me their receipt that they paid their bill at closing. So what was really great about it is got to see comics come up that not too many people knew who they were at the time. I mean, the big name that I'll drop is Sam Kinison. Sam Kinison played there just before his HBO special dropped. Nobody really knew who he was. And the crazy thing about it, so he did 3 shows, 1 Friday and 2 on Saturday. And the first show that he did on Friday, he bombed. He bombed hard. And you're just going, wow, this, he was definitely a wild man, and you're just going, wow, I don't know, this is pretty crazy.
3 more shows of this.
Yeah, right. And you're just going, see, but I was one of those guys where I liked it either way. I liked when comics weren't doing well, and then what did they do? Everybody had a different thing. Sometimes they turned on the audience. Sometimes they, just started to just do crowd work and tried to get, win them back over. And there were guys who were incredible out winning the people back.
You sound more and more like a comedian the more you talk, like as far as like loving to watch no matter what happens.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
A train wreck is, it's harder to watch at times when somebody's really taking it on the chin. It's kind of uncomfortable and you want to leave. But
you think it's hard to watch? Imagine doing it.
I can't. No.
Yeah.
See, that I think was the other part of it, was the incredible respect that you develop for somebody who's getting up there, and there's no escape. It's just you, and this is the material, and you hope it goes well. And
what was Sam doing when he was bombing? Did he have a way to get out of it on that Friday night show?
No, that Friday he didn't give a shit. I think he was, so again, this was a tiny place. This was a smaller club. I think he had copped an attitude like, oh, I'm at a shitty club. I don't care about these people. And it's only Friday, let's see what happens. So, he just stuck to his guns and just kept, if people groaned, he went harder. So, but on the flip side of it, the first show on Saturday was, it was a whole different ball game, where people were just going, oh my God, we're seeing something unique. And then Saturday, he broke the place. It was just, he absolutely crushed. There were tons of his jokes that you couldn't even hear because the laughs hadn't died down from, the stuff that he did before. So again, it's that thing where you're just going, and I couldn't tell you I wasn't paying attention enough at the time to go, oh, he tweaked the material or he restructured it and he opened with this and then, went to this. I don't know if he did or not. All I can tell you is it was a lot of the same material. You got to remember back then, at that time, people weren't, they would get an act and then they would ride that act for years because nobody was on TV or on social media. Like, they weren't burning the material. So you could go for years to a bunch of clubs and keep kind of doing the same material, and it would be new to almost every single crowd. So, the idea that he would show up and have, some newer material or switch it up for the second show, that was unheard of back then. But again, just amazing.
I'm glad that you covered off you knew that I'd try to go deep on it. So like, which jokes did he do, all that sort of stuff. Like I had to resist the urge to be like, hang on, I'm not about to ask you to
it was
remember.
Screaming, this is the face of a married man.
Yeah.
And again,
all
this
of those
club
classics
was so small. The front tables were, they were inches from the stage. So, he could literally be a foot away from the people he's screaming at. While he's doing his act.
And then but a few years later, people would give their firstborn to be in that front row.
So the comedians would come up, so now I'm there on a regular basis. You get a basis and you get to know the guys who are coming and going, because the comedians, it's a circuit, so they're going to come through a number of times. And they used to always, so there was 3 tables in the front, and they used to go, listen, this is, you can really help us out here. Tell people that these front tables are special and save them. He goes, and I want you to take either the people who are the craziest or the ones who look the weirdest, and then tell them, oh, you're the 50th person to come in tonight. You get to sit in the front row. So I was just setting up, fish in the barrel for the comedians to go after. and then there were people who just wanted to be in the front row and take the punishment. You're like, sure, yeah, you sure you want this? Because there's no escaping this. And
I've got a fair bit of experience being on stage. I've not had as much experience being in an audience, but it perfectly explains why whenever I go out to a show, they're like, you can sit up the front, mate.
Yeah. Yeah. And then every once in a while there'd be, you know, a girl dressed very provocatively, and you'd go, I think you guys want to sit in the front row, don't you? They're like,
the special spot.
No one says no to do you want to sit in the front row?
Yeah.
Only the
That's
really
awesome.
wise people go, you know, who have comedy club experience go, nah, I'm good. I'm good to third table back.
Do you know the recent like surgence in like crowd work videos on Instagram have scared people out of that? Like if I run a show, people just say like just people that only know comedy from looking at on Instagram and seeing like crowd work videos, it's kind of taken away a bit of that magic because everyone's kind of just waiting for the crowd work because a lot of people that are new to comedy only know it for what you see online and not for what it actually is. Like, and there's people that are going out they'll do a set at an open mic just so that they can do 5 minutes, which normally you'd be doing material in that 5 minutes, like stuff you've worked on. They just set out to do 5 minutes of crowd work in the hopes that they get a 30-second clip that'll go on Instagram and blow them up. Like, and it takes away from it a bit. I have a lot of like story-based comedy or like long-form things. And I think that a lot of that is getting taken away. Mind you, there are some great crowd work comedians that also do good material and they set out to do it. But I think sometimes a lot of this is just like people that have only just started doing comedy. They're trying to get like a shock factor sort of thing just so that they can...
They want clicks, they want likes. And and that will also create false expectations for you know, they have a good clip that they put up. People go, oh, I want to go see this guy, and they don't know that he's only been doing comedy for 24 months and he doesn't have more than 5 minutes of prepared material. And then when they get there, they're like, oh, this guy's unarmed. So you know, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I get you want people to know who you are, so you put it out there, but you could probably set, you know, you're getting out there maybe premature.
Yeah, I've heard stories of comedy venues booking comedians based on their social media following. And yeah, they'll get a big crowd, at least the first time they get booked. But then a lot of the reaction is people just being like, whoa, it's the guy from Instagram in person. And then after 10 minutes, that wears off and the material's thin.
Yep.
And they're sort of stuck with that. And a lot of the time you'll hear that, you know, the second show, they don't get booked or they don't, they book a smaller venue or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
and unless, that makes complete sense. You know, well, it's a new world, and you know, the audiences will figure it out and the comedians will figure it out. Yeah, it used to be great back when there was no social media for comedian, because you didn't know it was rare you knew anybody's name.
Yeah. And
so you would go there and there would be a lineup of guys and every one of them would be a surprise when they got up there. And, you know, it was, you know, even for me, you know, other than after I started working there, but yeah, it was like, I was always excited when it's like, yeah, there's some new people. I don't know this guy. And they'd get up. And again, comedy is that thing where, there's so many different ways of doing it, where when you used to go to a club to see music, you knew you were going to get a certain style of music that fit into the genre of the club, where when comedians come in, that's not how it works. It's all over the map. And you can have a guy who does impressions. There could be another guy. There was this guy named the Wid, and he was Carrot Top before there was a Carrot Top. And, total prop comic, and would come in, and it was ridiculous the amount of stuff that he would bring. But again, it's just those throw off one time jokes. You just go, yeah, that works. That works.
Well, first of all, I watched the Steve Martin documentary, the two-parter, like they call it Then and Now. So it goes through his comedy career and then it goes into his acting career. And it's crazy to see the stuff that he pulls out of the bag, like just in his early stand-up. He is very much like a prop comedian with but it feeds perfectly into his comedy. Like, and also you can see it in his early comedy, what then became his acting career. He's very, like, you can see traits in both. So you can see the crossover between the two parts. So I think that's a really good episode and a good show, two-parter documentary. And he has like this, he talks about all the people that he'd met over the years and like done parts with or whatever. And one of the best parts of the reason that I got recommended the documentary is because I'm a John Candy fan, massive John Candy fan. And there's like a really deep moment in there where he's going through the script for Planes, Trains and Automobiles. And he said that in that scene where John Candy finally like isn't the funny guy, he's just like himself and just says that like, I don't have a home. They had to like do that multiple times because Steve just kept bursting out crying every time they did the scene because of how touching it was. And actually after I did the interview with you last time, so you were on episode 91. On episode 94, I did an interview with Chris Candy, John Candy's son.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so or was it the other way around? Anyway, it was within a few episodes of when we spoke last. I did an interview with him, and we're chatting about like all the different characters in movies versus real life and what sort of like personality he was when he was off screen. And I guess I'm doing a callback not just to your past episodes, but to every episode I've ever done. So if anyone hasn't listened to every episode I've ever done, you just go through my catalog and all this will make sense to you.
It'll take no time at all. It's only 140.
Yeah, exactly. You could probably do that on the way to work. But the bit that I took out of it was one of my favorite movies is Uncle Buck, because it shows like the contrast between like the caring uncle that eventually comes around to the idea of responsibility, and also like the degenerate gambling addict that like got him to where he is. And in an interview with Jen Candy, John Candy's other kid, his eldest daughter, she was saying that the most similar personality to his real personality was in Uncle Buck, where he becomes the like caring parent, well, caring uncle. And I just thought it was interesting to see like how much you can sort of draw from real influences within acting, which is what made that Steve Martin thing so interesting, because it was like a lot of people saying I never really met Steve Martin. I've known him for years, but I've never met him, like, because it's all that silly improv comedy stuff, but then you would like get to know him after all these years finally. And I just found that was an interesting concept. And I think a lot of prop comedians are sort of that personality. They are very like probably behind closed doors of like very introverted, quiet like people, but then they're so silly and crazy on stage. Same with Sam Kinison. I've heard stories of Joey Diaz used to live with Sam Kinison apparently, and he was just sleeping on the couch or whatever, and he had his own room, and sometimes he would lock himself in that room for 3 days, like after or before big shows, or you would just or he would like, you'd think like he was never going to come back to comedy. Like you'd think, oh, that's it. He's not coming out. He's never going to return. Like he's given up. But he would just come out all guns blazing.
And I think that was probably, and another guy you can put on that list is Robin Williams, where they're manic in their, in their style of comedy.
Yeah. And
you can't keep that up 24/7. So I would imagine after, you do your thing, there's a whole bunch of time where you just got to shut it off and be quiet and like you say, you're probably, if it's not introverted, you're just, you got to recharge the batteries.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we're chatting about prop comedy, which brings this full circle. We have in Canberra our very own Slice in New Jersey. Let me explain. We have Canberra's most experienced in life comedian. Her stage name is Lady Blah Blah, and she was born in New Jersey, and she's a prop comedian.
Oh wow!
And she gets me on stage to help her out with her props, and it's so refreshing because she loves gardening. She likes her. She's very eco-friendly, and she has all these ideas. So at the end of every show, she always gives me something for the garden. So she'll do a prop where she's talking, like she ate a green bag on stage, like took a bite out of the biodegradable bags just to show that everybody should be using them. Now, I don't know if this is an accurate representation of New Jersey, but it's our
you mentioned Joey Diaz.
Joey
Diaz is a very ramped up version of what the people in New Jersey are like.
Right.
So yeah, he's awesome. Dialed up a little high, but that's a way closer representation.
But either way, look, to be fair, she's had a lot of Australian influence, so I don't know. But either way, that's my Slice. Lady Blah Blah. She gets on stage and she does.
All right, I gotta
look
her up.
I've got actually on her YouTube channel. I put up our sections of the clips, like just the interactions we've had, like her and I. Oh, and she'll do things like she'll like feed me like grapes on stage or whatever, some closing bit of her act. Like it's just ludicrous. Like it's so fun though. I usually kick off the show with her because it just sets the, like you're saying before about, the expectation that this is comedy. It's wild. Everything about it is off the hinges. Like it's just, we're not here because we're like, if we were completely like still within our minds, we'd be just sitting at home watching TV, but instead we're out trying to get the attention that our parents never gave us.
Is it the parents? Is that who it is? Or
no, it's never enough. I feel like if they spent more attention, we probably would have taken that and got it from someone else as well, and then tried to, before you know it.
It's funny. It's funny because what I do is kind of the opposite. It's still a mental illness, but you force yourself to stay at home and be alone and concentrate on what's in front of you. And the more time that you spend alone with just your art and nobody around is when the best things come out. So that's why I think I'm fascinated by the art form where you're the performing arts. That what I do is that's a running joke anytime anybody looks over my shoulder when I'm working is, hey, get the hell out of here, these ain't the performing arts.
I think that, so like when you finish an artwork though, right, you still need to show people so that they can respect it. And I think that a lot of great comedians do spend that time at home with no one else and just write and then go out and show what they've written. The difference is we keep working on it when we go out. So it'd be like if you half did an outline, say Slappy in the background there, and then you had to go out and the audience laughed at every brushstroke you did. And if they didn't laugh, you erased that brushstroke and did like the one that they laughed for. And eventually you got this steaming pile of shit and you go, you guys wanted that. You wanted that to look like that. This isn't my fault. It's your fault. The mics aren't loud enough. There's no people in the front row. Where's the scantily dressed chick that I asked for? You can start blaming the venue. See, whereas you need to actually stand by your artwork. Whereas I can make a complete
it's 100% complete before the world gets to see it. And like you say, you could come up with a concept 15 minutes before you go on stage and go, all right, well, I'm going to throw this up at the end and see if I can turn this into something. And like you say, you end up working it until it's its own monster. That's a hard thing for me to get my head wrapped around if creating a painting would be influence like that. I mean, there's a little teeny tiny bit of that when you work with an art director who's got their own vision and they're a dominant figure where it's like, okay, you're just the hired hand. I'm going to tell you everything, but it's generally one person. It's not a conglomeration of a bunch of people. And again, it's a whole different emotion. Getting, laughter is its own thing. It's its own drug.
Yeah, it is. It's like a lot of. I did an interview with an Australian comedian who went to prison. And when he was in prison, he thought to himself, I really want to. I've always wanted to do comedy, so when I get out, I'm going to actually make a go of it. He was locked up for having a saleable quantity of magic mushrooms. And that won him a lot of good stead in prison because they just thought he was the funny, the funny mushroom guy. So, you're
not getting beat up for being the funny mushroom guy.
Yeah. They're just like, it also helps that he's staunch. So he's not like the standard skinny Reiki sort of hippie guy that you'd expect to have a saleable quantity of mushrooms. He's like the staunch, thick dude that just also preferred people had a good time. But anyway, he wrote a book, and the book's called Jokes I Wrote About the Time I Served in Prison, or something like that. I can't remember. He's very intimidating. Hopefully he doesn't hear that I stuffed up the name. But anyway, he was on the podcast and he was saying that prison gave him a time to sober up, because as well as being in the lifestyle, he was also drinking a lot, doing lots of crazy stuff. And he said that in prison he had it sobered him up. And they actually said to him when he left that doing comedy would be a very risky time initially, because he'd want to chase the feeling. It would give him the laughs, and the dopamine of being on stage could actually trigger a relapse, because you want to try and chase that feeling again. And he said that that was very difficult. The first time he got off stage, he wanted to keep the dopamine going and just wanted to keep partying, and he had to keep it strict. But luckily now, I think after he's been out for a couple of years, he said one good thing was he got his sentence was reduced, I think, because of the lockdowns. He spent time in house arrest because that counted towards some of his time, so that helped as well. He's been out for a few years now, and comedy is his new drug, he said.
Yeah, so it's not this guy, I think, along with the dopamine you're getting from the comedy, you're just you're in a party environment. When you go to work, everybody else is there to party, and this is your job. And if you have a substance issue and you're trying not to, if you had a weight problem and you're working in a restaurant, it's hard as well. I could only imagine trying to, the self-discipline that you would need to be able to go there, do your gig, and then either be able to hang out and just not join in. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, and he won the best newcomer in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. So it's definitely goes to show like how much you can go. If he just basically said, I don't want to do bad things when I leave prison. I want to just do comedy. So it shows that devotion. Now,
yeah, and you can also derive that the comedy comes out of usually dark things, and
sure.
He was able to find the angle of stuff while you're incarcerated and turn them into laughs. That's super healing.
His first clip that sort of he used to promote his show was while he was in there to pass time and help the writing process, he was doing food reviews on the prison food.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And he's got a captive audience who's always going to agree with him.
Oh, it's so good. And then he would say like what had happened to him personally that may have affected his opinion of the food. Like for one, he said like, I had a corned beef sandwich. It was like dry, and I only give it like 4 out of 10. Also, my wife took the dog and said she never wants to see me again today, so that might have affected the taste. Now, from high-end saleable quantity prison-style drugs, we're talking from there all the way down through the spectrum. Tell us your arrest story.
Okay, so so again, we're in the late 70s. I'm 19. I'm not married yet. I got married early. I got married at 21. So I'm probably 19. I'm in art school, and I own a motorcycle, Honda 250 Enduro, on off the road, just a little scat bike that can get around with. So, and it's my second vehicle. I also had a car. You can't ride a motorcycle in New Jersey 12 months out of the year. It's just it's a 4-month vehicle. It's icy, it's snowing in the winter, or it's just plain too damn cold to use it as your form of transportation. So it was more of a toy that I bought myself. I owned a couple of motorcycles, and I don't know the laws in Australia, but insurance is a huge thing in the state of New Jersey. It's one of the most litigious states. There's rules and regulations for everything. Now, when I was 17 and 18, I didn't really follow the rules the way I should have. And a motorcycle insurance policy, because they knew you were really only going to be riding 6 months out of the year, was, if I remember right, it was $40 for a year. It was pocket change. It was nothing. But there was a pain in the ass thing about it, because you couldn't, you didn't do shit online. You couldn't pay over the internet. You had to go places and hand people the money. And so I didn't stay on top of my paperwork. I got it. You needed to show insurance to register your motorcycle the first time and get the plates, the license plates, and have what you need the first time. But then every year it would come up again, and then you'd go, I'm not going to bother. So you get caught once without it, they charge you a fine, and it's not that big of a deal. And then when you get caught the second time, they charge you a little bit more of a fine, and they take your driver's license. So I'm without, and they take your motorcycle license and your car license aren't two separate entities. They're together. So they took my car license for, if I remember right, it was a 3-month thing. Now, if you do it a third time, now they're pissed. And I did it a third time because the motorcycle, so the story goes that the motorcycle, I was riding in woods, snapped off the gear shifter, didn't get around to fixing it, finally got the thing fixed, was taking it out for kind of the maiden voyage to make sure it was all working again. And then I was going to get it re-registered and get a new, it had, I just screwed on a plate that was in the garage. Anyway, I get caught for the third time. Now, in the state of New Jersey back then, third offense, now you're going to jail. This is now, jail is not the same thing as the story the guy talked about as prison. Jail and prison are two different things. Jails are local. You'll see people in there. You're only there for, nobody spends more than probably, I think a year sentence in a jail would be, you would be a high-end person. Most people are going in, doing, you're doing your stupid thing. Okay, you got a 1-month sentence, you got a 2-week sentence. Again, it's all for nonsense. So I get in trouble for the third time. The cops tell me I'm in trouble. I don't say anything to my dad because I think I'm too cool for that. I got this all under control. And, I get myself a lawyer when I go to court, and he's going, there's not a lot I can do for you. These are mandatory sentences. You're going. And and again, I'm stupid and young, and I go, no, I'm not. Anyway, go to court, and they go, yeah, you're going to do 90 days in jail. And I was going, 90 days. I'm in art school. 90 days. So the lawyer goes, well, listen, this guy's not a troublemaker. He's in school. I want to propose that he goes to jail. He uses the weekend program. And the judge goes, okay, yeah, we'll let him use the weekend program. So what the weekend program was you would go in Friday night, you would sleep there, you'd stay there Saturday night, Sunday night, and they'd let you out Monday morning so that you could go to your job, or in my case, I could go back to school. And you would get 4 days credit for a weekend, even though you really were only there 2 days. But in order to do so, you go, oh, that's a good deal. Well, it's not a good deal, because that 90 days now will take you 6 months of weekends in a row without stop, and you're going to jail every weekend. So now, again, it's ludicrous. I'm going to jail for a $35 insurance policy is nutty enough. The fact that I'm going for 6 months is even crazier. So, and now when you got to go the first, when you're going to jail the first time, you only know jail by what you've seen on TV and movies. And, however cool you think you are, it's not cool going there the first time. And so what they did, and I think they did it on purpose, and I think they did it to everybody. So there was actually a room, a cell. It was a group room where they put all us weekenders, and all of us were there for the same stupid shit. It was motor vehicle violations of one form or another. Nobody did anything. Every once in a while there would be somebody who came in who, stole a bicycle or something like that. But the first weekend you go there, you don't know that there's this weekend room, and they purposely put you in with everybody else. And you're in there with people who did real crimes and people who are way older than you are. And, it was, it was unnerving. Let me just call it unnerving.
Yeah.
And all the beds were just lined up one next to each other. You were in a group cell. There was probably a dozen of us in the cell. There's a toilet in the corner of the room, and if you got to go to the bathroom, that's where you go. There was a television outside the bars that you didn't control. It just came on and went off. And so the first weekend, you just sit there and shut up and sit on your bed and don't say anything to anybody. In the middle of the night, the first weekend I'm there. So talking to people, you start to talk to people after a while, and you find out every other dude in this room is in there for doing something for real. He robbed a gas station. This guy's in here for something else. And there was this lunatic guy that you knew there was something wrong with him. And I was like, I saw that dude in the newspaper, and he was in there for, kidnapping some, family member. So it was kidnapping, but it wasn't really kidnapping. Anyway.
Joey Diaz with a machine gun.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Young Joey.
If they're in another room against, like, under
so in the middle of the
direction.
Night.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the night, you're supposed to be sleeping, and you're sleeping with one eye open. Nobody was mean, violent. Everybody's just in there, just keeping to themselves, But I'm sure if you came in there and you acted like an ass, you could have easily got yourself in trouble. Anyway, middle of the night, the lunatic guy gets up, and I got one eye open, and I'm watching. He goes over to the toilet, and he gets, oh, by the way, everybody can smoke.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, and everybody is smoking, so the point I'm making is there's also lighters and matches in the room.
Yeah. But these days, if you'd be in there for longer.
Exactly. That would be a crime. They would have put you in there for that. Anyway, the lunatic gets up in the middle of the night. He goes and tears off a bunch of toilet paper on the floor. So at the foot of all our beds, he goes down, and he's got a piece of chalk, and he draws a giant circle and gets in the middle of it. Then he draws a pentagram inside the circle. Then he takes the toilet paper and he sets it on fire. And he recites the Lord's Prayer backwards in the middle of the room. Now, I'm all of 18, 19 years old. I was like, I am so far out of my league right now. I was like, oh God, please let this just be just a bad dream. And again, nothing came out of it, but nobody showed up. Nobody cared. There was a fire in the room. And nobody pretended they noticed. I didn't sit up and watch him. I gave him the, I'm asleep, one eye, I'm watching you. Yeah. So that was the weirdest, wildest thing that happened. But I also want you to know that when you got there, even when you were in the regular guy room, they treated you like a prisoner. You got strip searched. They took your belt. Sometimes they took your shoelaces out of your shoes because, of course, I'm going to hang myself over the weekend for my insurance policy on my motorcycle. That's more than likely what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So now, so I go there my first weekend, and it's just like, oh my, like I got older in 4 days, and now I got to go to art school, and I have to tell them at art school that I have to leave early every Friday so that I can be to jail on time for the weekends. So now I got to go in, and so now I have to keep retelling this crazy story over and over again to everybody. The guy who ran the school was just a sweetheart of a guy. At first when I was telling him this, he thought it seems like a story that you're making up. And then, he got on board real quick, and then he used to torture me every Friday and walk into the class, whatever class I was in on Friday afternoon. He would go, "Oh, Mr. Jacobus, the state troopers are out front waiting for you." Of course, the cops weren't there to pick me up. He was just embarrassing me in front of everybody else. It was a lot of, so then the following weekends you end up with all the other people who are in there for the same silly nonsense. And you just, you played cards, and, you watch bad TV back then. It was black and white TV. There was 4 channels, and, 2 of them are fuzzy. And, it was just a super long period of time, though. So, 6 months worth of weekends so that was the other thing then, too, was there were school assignments that I would get for the weekend, and now I can't do them because I'm not at my normal desk.
Yeah,
so
you're not going to rock up to prison with your art box.
Well, I started to bring my sketch pad, and I got my teacher to agree that in lieu of whatever the homework assignment was, I would do prison sketches. And everybody's bored to tears, so I could get anybody to sit down and let me do their portrait. It was the easiest because nobody's doing anything. Everybody's just bored. And of course, the deal was, listen, I'll draw a portrait of you. You just have to let me take it with me on Monday to turn it in to get credit for it. And then I'll bring it back to me next weekend, and you can have it and keep it. That's, you get, if you sit for me, I'll give you the sketch. So then I had a never ending line of people who wanted to get their portrait drawn. And, then you start getting, then people start treating you good. One of the guys so then I moved from the weekenders room to what was it called? The work release area, which was actually had it wasn't just one big room with just a row of beds. It was a bunch. There was 2 beds to a room. And then there was a common sitting area with a TV. It was a real, the worst college dorm that you were ever in your life. Yeah. And then there were guys who could come and go we couldn't as weekend people, but there were guys who could come and go and walk around the facility. They couldn't leave the building, but they had privileges to go around. And if I drew a picture of one of those dudes, they would make sure I got, they'd come back with some food that they got from somewhere, or donuts off of somebody's desk. So I got, I got better coffee. I got a couple of donuts here and there. So I started to work the system a little bit. But I remember vividly, and it's one of the things that I always kept in mind. I turned 21 No, so that's right. Did I turn 20 or 21? No, I turned 20. I was 19 when I got in, and I spent my 20th birthday in jail. And I remember staring out the window, which was, just one of those little slit windows, going, you got to get your shit together, dude. This is not, nobody's there to catch you when you do stupid shit like this. So you better start to figure this out. Your mom and your dad couldn't get you out of this one. Your smart mouth couldn't get you out of this one. So let's use this and I want you to remember this feeling that you're having right this minute, and take that with you when you get out of here.
That was your version of I got to do comedy when I get out of here.
Yeah, it was. Well, the thing is I made sure that didn't interfere with school. I did all the things I had to do. I talked to all the people I had to talk to. I made sure every assignment got done, that even though this was totally ridiculous and out of the norm, I wasn't going to let this derail me and then, use it as an excuse of, I got in trouble, so I can't do this other thing. So,
I think it's good that it didn't start that vicious cycle that people seem to get in early on.
Again, I was in for something really silly, and there was never a point where I was ashamed of myself. I was dumb, but I didn't, I didn't do anything. Yes, it was illegal by the rules and laws of the land, but I didn't have anything where I was like, oh man, you really screwed up and you got to really make amends or atone for what you've done. It was like, I could, next time I'll buy the damn policy, And right around the time that I got finished with it, they changed all those laws, and they were going, we're spending so much money to take these people who aren't really doing any crimes, and we're putting them in jail. So what they started to do was, the first thing they did was, nobody goes to jail anymore, but you are going to the recycle center, and you're going to sort plastic bottles and cans every day. You're going to show up like it's a job. Then when you got there, if you said, oh yeah, well, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a plumber. All right, well, you're not going to sort stuff, but we've got broken toilets at the local park, and you're going to go over there and you're going to fix the toilets for, so they started to use the manpower way, a little bit more smart than, putting people in just having us all sit there and spend, the taxpayers' money on a free meal and bad TV.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. They started using it a bit. Like, you weren't going to start your life of crime of not paying insurance. It's like, no, that's it. You've sent me over the edge. I'm never paying
This
insurance.
This isn't the launch pad. This isn't the slippery slope.
You weren't in there and someone came up and said, hey, man, I've got a lot of bills that you cannot pay once you get out of here. We could farm it out.
I got a bunch of motorcycles that you can buy insurance on if you want.
Now, so that's the prison story. Let's do a quick recap on something here. So I think the first time we spoke, I was fairly early in the podcast, I was just upgraded my podcasting gear. Got this microphone, which I've used ever since, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Second time was after I moved into my last house, which was had a small bedroom, which I turned into a study / podcasting studio. It was dual purpose. But now, after all these years, I've got my own place, and I have a dedicated podcasting studio. So you get to watch the evolution of the podcast over the years. So, and I'll show you in the video a picture of what's behind me. I've set up like a backgrounds there with a bunch of different things. There's some different artworks from different Australian artists. I've also got, now it's hard to see because of the glare, but the picture that's directly above my head in that frame there is 4 of your artworks that you'd sent over after the last podcast.
Yeah, cool.
In a frame, so that's cool. It's hard to tell also on the screen because it's like blurry because of the CRT. I like old school TVs. I use them for retro gaming. I think that retro games look better on that style of TV. But I'm realizing after I put that slideshow together, a lot of the artworks as well look so true on that color from the old TVs. Like sometimes with the new TVs, I tend to find the blacks are a little bit like too. They're not true enough for me.
Gotcha.
I don't know. Like maybe talking to an artist is the only person that doesn't think I'm crazy when I say things like this.
I believe that. Yeah, monitors can. That's actually an issue. Doing digital art is you're painting to the monitor, and black is one of the big issues. And then so when you get done, if you're not careful, your paintings can be too dark because you're compensating for the monitor, but the print version of that is going to come across a whole lot darker. So then you start playing around with, here, let me print this thing. Now let me adjust my monitor so that I get it, bring it up to get something closer so that when you're getting done, you're not spending the next 4 hours readjusting your image. That's
one of those things, and I think that the old school like games they were calibrated for that type of TV. So when you like then put an old console on a new TV, I tend to find that the art style it's not made for pixels. It's made for like lines and scan lines and all that sort of stuff. It might also just be something that like is a preference, but it is a preference, but my preference is that I prefer it on that TV. And also now I've got a space that I can do it. I can have it however I like because finally it's all my shit,
awesome.
Yeah. Now, I do have, for the first time in like 12 years, in my study, because this is separate from the house, in the actual study where I have my, like the boring computer set up, not the fun podcasting one, but the boring work one. I have a shelf above it, and the previous owners had like a giant DVD collection, which I have some, but not like crazy like they had. So I'll show you a photo. I finally, for the first time in 12 years, because I've always been renting or moving around, I haven't really had a dedicated space, was able to set up my Goosebumps book collection. So nice. I was able to finally get them all out, share a picture.
Oh, wow.
So I have 2 complete sets of the original 62.
Wow.
And they end probably about halfway through that line. And then after that's the Give Yourself, and then the Series 2000.
Wow.
And then after that, I've got the 2 triple headers with the holographic fronts, the 2 black ones there. And then the More Tales to Give You. Yep. Followed by there's 4 books before the thick ones at the end. They're actually not Goosebumps, but they're R.L. Stine's like side, like other books that aren't Goosebumps.
Yeah.
And the other one, there's one in there out of the thick books that has like a fold-out light, like an inbuilt light in it, like pretty crazy.
So one of them has the fold-out light. Then one of them has the LED eyes of
Slappy's eyes, yeah.
And then there was one where you opened it up and it screamed.
That's the third one. So, like, after all these years, the little batteries are built into the book. I can't replace them, but the novelty is awesome. On the shelf above that, I've got some board games. There's one that's wrapped up. That's the Goosebumps board game that came out. There's 2 tin cases on the far right. They're actually the 20-year and 25-year edition tin case
Nice.
releases. Now, that's pretty much the collection there. In
That's incredible.
Amongst all of that, it led me to two questions. So, on the far right of that, you can probably see I finally got, my brother bought me these for a 30th birthday. It's the holographic cards that came out. And so he bought the set of that. He's also a collector of things like me, and he tracked them down and bought a set for me. And also he collects more like records and CDs and that sort of stuff. So I think because we moved around so much when we were younger, we never really had space to collect. So now we've sort of chose a couple of specific things that we really liked from our childhood and have collected them. So the question is, with like, there's so much merch for do you ever just see things that you didn't even know existed that are official Goosebumps branded merch?
All the time. I mean, it's incredible. Going to comic conventions, people bring things to get signed, and I thought I've seen most of it. What's cool is there's a lot of it that I only saw photographs of, or I've seen a picture, and then somebody shows up with it in person, and you're going, oh wow, this is a myth, this is a legend, this is so even those three-dimensional the things you just showed, I've never seen those in person. So
cool.
I got books. The merch was all done outside of Scholastic, so
like Kiss.
No, it wasn't like I was getting it shipped to me and I had this wild collection. So my whole thing was there was tons of stuff. It was everywhere for a while, and then then it slowly starts to disappear, and I'm always just blown away by some of the stuff, especially if it's like, hey, did you do the artwork on this? And when I first look at it, I'm going, I don't remember. And then you take a closer look and you go, I guess I did. That's 100% my stuff on there. So that's it's way fun, and where people find them just is mind blowing. The stuff that gets dug up, and again, here you are on the other side of the planet, and you still have the ability to find all this stuff. I know Goosebumps was worldwide, but still, I'm always blown away.
Yeah, it's so cool, and it's so cool, like, to have all these things all these years later. Like, the amount of times that growing up that I've gone, especially when the nostalgia wave hit, that someone had said like, oh yeah, I'll give you a decent amount of money for that full set of Goosebumps books. The amount of times I've turned it down to now have my own place with its own spot. It's just so crazy how much everything works. Like, over the years, I've kept so many things, and now I'm in my own place. I'm sort of like, oh, that perfectly fits on this shelf. Like, it was like meant to be, and all these things that I don't like storing stuff and not enjoying it, not having it out. Like, you might see that my reading level is still at the Goosebumps level, so it's great for me because I think that all these years later, I'm still going through it. Like, we've my wife. So since we spoke last, I got married as well.
Congratulations!
So my wife and I will sit down, and she's a nurse, so she helps me out with she takes work home with her, just like you're talking about homework, and to help me with my reading, because sometimes I'm a good reader, but I have bad attention span, so I'll skip ahead or miss words or whatever. So like, I can actually read, but just don't have the attention sometimes to stick to it. And which is why I think when I was a kid, Goosebumps was good for me, because it was something that was short and like, it was captivating. So just as a little exercise now, sometimes if we're got everything done, we've got a few hours before bed or whatever, I'll read her like a chapter of Goosebumps as full-grown adults, because she just never really read them right through. She might have read a book here or there. So yeah, people probably wouldn't see it from the photo, but you'll see that the first book in that series has a bookmark about halfway through it, and our goal is to get through the entire shelf.
That's awesome. No, and it's funny. I went back recently and read a Goosebumps book. So when I did book covers back in the day, whether they were a Goosebumps book or not a Goosebumps book, the only way you could get your book published was to be well vetted and, pass through the system. And many people had screened that book long before Scholastic or Dell Books or Simon and Schuster decided that they were going to follow through and publish your book. So all the books I read were, the only thing that I could complain about was it wasn't a subject matter I was interested in. They were all very, very well written. Now, you can self-publish. Everybody can self-publish, and everybody is out there giving it a go. And what that does is there's no longer that vetting process. And, I've gotten a group of books that came through back to back to back that weren't great. And I thought, maybe it's me. I've been doing this a long time. I'm starting to get jaded. I know what to anticipate. And, maybe it's just me being a crotchety old man. And so that's what made me go back and go, well, let me pop open an old Goosebumps book and see if is it me or is it them? And first chapter, I start reading through it and I just went, no, this stuff, of course it's not for me. I'm not 11 years old anymore, but the structure, the pacing, the timing, and then, the hook at the end of every chapter to make you keep reading. I just went, no. These are good. These are really good. And there's, that the other books are just not great. So.
Yeah, well, that it just goes to show, and there's a reason that it was such a popular series. Like, it wouldn't have got to where it is if it wasn't as good as what it is. Which is my second question, and we'll probably close up with this one to wrap it up if you're happy with that.
Oh,
yeah. I've been watching some of the newer series, right? The Disney has a new Goosebumps series. They sort of intertwine the storylines for the books into one series. There's the movies with Jack Black now. Tragic story. I figured that I would try having you on the show. Then I would reach out to R.L. Stine, eventually to Jack Black, and just make a nice little collection there. That chain ended when I messaged R.L. Stine and said, I've had Tim Jacobus on the show. I'd love to make a 2-part episode. Would you be interested? Now, normally people don't reply to messages. R.L. Stine replied and said, no, thank you. So that was...
Hey, you got to know thank you. That's pretty good.
That was the best attempt that has ever happened with that sort of stuff, because normally you don't know, like, hey, do they reach it? Do they get the message? Whatever.
Yeah, which keeps you from hitting them up again, because you don't want to be a pest.
Yeah.
But you also go, well, did I send it to the right place? Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah. So I didn't get onto Jack Black because I obviously the chain was broken at that point. But like I said, R.L. Stine, a gentleman, actually let me know that. Let me know. So that's good. The question that I had was, with all of like the new movies and series and things like that, do you ever consult with any of that sort of stuff for the art style? Are you ever engaged with any of the newer stuff as far as art direction?
No, they even the original TV show that was kind of happening simultaneously with us producing the books. No, they kind of keep everybody in their own silos. I'm the book guy and the book cover guy. Nobody's even asking me, hey, what's a good idea for a Goosebumps book? Nobody cares what I have to say about it. I like going into it exactly that way, though. I'm just a fan. I'm intimately involved in it, as a fan. But so far, what I like is that everybody's done their own thing. Nobody's crossed over, and you didn't go, oh, this is just a modern version of the old TV show, or even the TV show wasn't a direct, this is just the books. They all have their own thing about it. And the new Disney Plus series, again, kind of geared them up a little bit for the older Goosebumps fans, because they know that's the bigger percentage of the audience, but kept the common theme underneath it. And I think it's all very cool. But no, nobody asked, hey, should we make this darker, or what do you think of this, this version of Slappy, or any of that? But but again, I like that nobody's, there's no, it's there, I like certain things better than I like other things, but none of it in there is like, oh man, they really tarnished the brand. It's all you like stuff better than other stuff, or they tried real hard on that, maybe they tried too hard, and then there's other stuff where you go, yeah man, that is way cool. So yeah, the fact that they're still putting out new versions of Goosebumps, something that was popular in the 90s, usually stuff runs its course and that's it, and you move on. And the fact that there's still life in the brand and people are still interested is super cool.
Was the Goosebumps logo, like the G, or the whole word, but the G, was that designed by you as well?
No, that was designed by there was an art director named David Tomasino. He had a secretary named Holly Rubin, and Holly was the one, I think, who roughed it out at first, and I think they were going to get somebody else to do it, or they tried to get other people to do it, and it kept coming back incorrect. So they ended up just going with Holly's original version and just cleaned it up a little bit. And so, yeah, it was kind of done quick and fast, but that was the magic. Yeah,
that's interesting. You're talking about crazy merch that you see over the years. I've seen someone, it wouldn't obviously been the one from the movies, but someone's rocked up with a Slappy doll that's like for like exactly the one that you'd see in the TV series. But I think that maybe it's just because it's my first influence, but I think I prefer the original design for the artwork for the cover of the Slappy instead of the TV version. Maybe just because that's my first impression, and I'll stick with the one that I remember first. But
and I don't know this for a fact. This is just my opinion, or my idea of what happened. The TV show had such a low budget. I think what they had was, we've got this doll. Let's use this one. We can save some money and have enough money to do 3 more episodes. So it's not exactly like the one on the cover, but it's close enough. And I think that really was the thing. Sure, I would have liked it all to been spot on, so that there was a consistency in the character. But again, I think it was all I think it was just derived by the necessity, the need to stay in budget and
Yeah. Budget determines so much. It's like the
Sure.
first Terminator movie. The budget was but it was the content was so good. Fun fact for that movie: apparently, when they smashed the window in that car, where Arnie's like on the bonnet and puts his fist through the car, now that was just a random parked car. They ran away after that scene. They didn't have the budget.
I've never heard that before.
But anyway, that's pretty funny.
That's a good story. That's probably not true, but I like it. You should keep telling it.
Yeah. That wraps it up with the final question. I do appreciate you being on the show, and thank you so much for coming back for the third time.
I appreciate you having me back.
I think that if I was to describe it, I actually thought of the ultimate way to close out how I would say that to describe your artwork. Tim Jacobus, the man who captured the attention of an entire generation with ADHD.
Ooh, I like that. That's a winner. I might be stealing that one.
Now I am actually going to America in 2 weeks. I'm going to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to judge in the World Beard and Mustache competitions.
Only you, my friend.
So
you.
how cool is that? So
That sounds pretty good. Pittsburgh's a cool place. You're gonna like it.
Yeah, it'll be my first trip to the States. So
and Pittsburgh's it's got a nice personality. It's not too big and out of control. People there are great. You're gonna like it.
Awesome.
That's a good taste of the U.S.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I fly into Dallas and then over to Pittsburgh. So it's for the beard company, the company that supplies me with beard oil, Mad Viking Beard. The guys, that's what that like logo is there. That's why I sort of put it in the background because every 6 months they send me 6 months worth of beard oil from the States. So that's cool. And they're hosting it. So they've got me on to do that. So it'll be really cool. The chance to go over there just because I woke up one day and decided not to shave is pretty cool.
and it spawned a whole thing. You got beard wax forever and beard oil, beard wax, and you go into the States. That's cool, all right. Nobody's giving me shit for this.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. Thanks everyone for listening. A quick shout out as well. Your website, do you still do the charity runs as well? Yeah. Yes. So, for anybody listening, our last couple of episodes have had quite a few US listeners. So I'm going to give you a shout out here as well. Head over to Tim's website and make a donation or buy artwork in the form of a donation, or even not just to do the donation, buy some cool artwork.
Yeah, so it's buy a poster, and we take half the money from the poster, and we buy food for the food bank. We take a picture of the truck filled with food from every month. We're 1 or 2 months shy of 5 years of doing it, and we fill the truck every month, and it's only because of everybody being so cool and continuing to purchase posters. So thank you.
Yeah, good to be in. And I think when we first chatted, it'd been like 1.5 or 2 years into it. So it's cool to see such a good cause going on for withstanding the test of time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Check out my website, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Don't
Cheers.
find me a drink.
Just name names.
Yeah, right. Big time. You're fucking thrown out of the strip club with your floppy disk. Yeah, you got a big beard, dude.
Shame for shit all day.
Me and my best friend, Marky Worthington.
Keep it simple. Count your money.
That they're not proud of.
Just give me $10.
Hey, right.
Click.
Did you hang up?
No, I just said click.